All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the August 25th, 2020 meeting of the Town Council Charter Review Committee. In accordance with Massachusetts general law, this meeting is being videotaped and audio recorded, as well as being remotely broadcasted via a Zoom webinar. If there's anyone in our viewing audience who is taping this meeting, would you please announce yourself? Hearing and seeing none. Do I have a volunteer for a minute? And Marilyn has raised her kind hand. Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marilyn.
First order of business, we have two sets of minutes to look at. We have minutes from the meeting of August 11th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Jeff made the motion, seconded by
Second it.
Phil. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, Phil Adams,
Yes.
Larry Levine, yes. Jeff Bosworth,
Yes.
Marilyn Richards,
Yes.
William Fonseca,
Abstain, I wasn't at that meeting.
okay, and Tom Christensen.
Yes.
Is there someone on the, oh, here,
We're
and
just-
Ralph Page. Ralph Page, are you in approval of the August 11th minutes?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so that's unanimous.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Was there
And
any?
now we have minutes of August 18th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved
Second.
by William Fonseca, second
Second by me.
by Jeff Bosworth. Discussion?
Just one comment, please.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
And it's just one word, page 3. It's a second paragraph that starts with Ralph requested. I don't know if you can find it. That paragraph, the third line, there was a quote that we added in the motion, notwithstanding of the above. And I thought the words were notwithstanding the above. It's just the one word of, I'm not sure which is appropriate. But I thought we said notwithstanding the above.
Bear with me a second. Yes, that should be changed to delete the word of.
Okay. And the other comment, moving
Go
on,
ahead.
the comment is the last page, and it's just a procedural thing. When Tom showed up at the meeting at 5:25 p.m., and that's not in the minutes, but all of a sudden Tom voted to adjourn. And
I was wiped out, Marilyn.
he voted to adjourn, and I wasn't included in the vote, which was appropriate because we would have had too many. So Phil caught that.
Yep.
But I just wanted to explain why I was voting all along, and at the end, Tom adjourned and I didn't.
Okay.
Okay.
I actually watched the video. You did adjourn, and so did I. So I was actually 8, so I could probably come off, or should probably come off.
It doesn't matter. It's just
Yeah.
we just can't have 8 people voting. That's all.
Any other comments? One I want to compliment Phil on the comprehensiveness of the entire minutes. On the page 3, the third paragraph is just one sentence. I believe it should say the sentence in section 6, paragraph 6, because that's the only sentence in that paragraph.
What do you want it to say, Larry?
It should say the sentence in section 6, paragraph 6.
Okay, I'll make both those changes and I'll send them over to Jeannie.
All right, I've got two more, Phil. At the bottom of page 3, in the last line, the word sole should be S-O-L-E.
I kind of like the other word.
Yeah, I did too.
I knew it.
You
On
know
page,
us.
on page 4,
I'm glad
On
you read
the-
that.
what's that?
I'm glad you read the 5 pages.
Well, see, that's it.
I read the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
On page 4, the second large paragraph, halfway through the paragraph, there's a sentence begins, Chairman Levine repeats the 3-step process and asks the committee if that process is too cumbersome. I hate to be, pardon me for being anal, but I do.
Can't hear you.
All right, it should be TOO cumbersome, but that's not why, I just caught that. Or should it, and it should be remain the way it is, not remind. Then I have a substantive question for everyone. Then you continue down in that paragraph, and the 1, 2, 3, the 5th or 6th line from the bottom of that paragraph, Chairman Levine goes over the 3-step process again. And you have a public hearing is needed for the town manager's proposal to the town council. First of all, I think it's a public meeting rather than a public hearing. And I think it's needed for the town manager to be approved by the town council.
Okay, so what do you want me to change?
Here, read
I
it
should
again.
say Chairman Levine goes over the 3-step process again, period. A public meeting is needed for the town manager's proposal to be approved by the town council.
Okay,
Got it.
And that's all I,
Yep.
Ralph, are you, or you're just moving?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I was just reading and yes, I agree with you, Larry.
Uh-oh. Okay, all those in favor, Phil Adams,
yes,
Larry Levine, yes, Jeff Bosworth,
yes.
Marilyn Richards,
Yes.
William Fonseca,
Yes.
Tom Christensen,
I'll abstain.
Ralph Page.
Yes.
And I should note at this point that Andrew Fraser is absent, and so Marilyn Richards is a voting member today. Okay.
Who made and seconded that motion, please?
I made the motion.
Bill?
William Fonseca made it, and who
Jeff
seconded?
seconded, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We ended last meeting in Article 2, Section 6, Paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Section 7, we decided to come back to that after we met with the town manager. Am I correct?
Correct.
We, though, had previous discussions, Ralph, and you're going to talk to us about codification of the bylaws. And you had suggested, and Ralph had sent us a proposed wording for such a inclusion within the bylaws. Everyone has seen that proposal?
Yeah,
Any comments?
thought it was good.
Yeah, I agree with it.
Marilyn?
Just before we jump into things, we did get some follow-up information from Jeannie regarding the attorney's suggestions to this. I'm trying to find it.
Mhm.
Didn't you all get copies?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if we, if we want to look at Ralph's language in addition to Jesse Tim's language. That's all.
May I make a suggestion? And part of it is speaking as a lawyer, Ralph.
Yep.
Somewhere has to be, if the committee wants to recommend this, there has to be a definition of what does codification mean? That's one suggestion. And the other suggestion, everyone understands where Ralph is going with this, because the current bylaw, current charter prohibits amending bylaws more than one at a time. And this would be if there was I don't want to keep calling a recodification of the bylaws, but somehow a change on the overall structure. So my second suggestion is not only is there a definition, but if the committee's in favor of recommending such a amendment to the charter, I think it behooves us to, before we act on the wording, and maybe it's already been sent, but I wasn't clear, Ralph's wording hasn't been sent to the town's lawyer. Ralph, you there?
I'm here. I don't know if Jeannie had forwarded my language to the town attorney.
I think I did. And I'm sorry to say I think I did. It's been kind of busy.
I believe she did, and I believe he weighed in on that was one of the options that we could do.
Yes, I
Yeah,
did.
but it seems to say, and this is coming from Jesse, that I'm happy to help draft some possible language for consideration. And one of the, you are correct, one of them would be, is one of the three options she suggested, but I wonder if it behooves us to send your proposed language, which I don't have a problem with, and ask whether we need a definition of codification to insert within that language.
So I did send that to Jesse, and that was Jesse's response came the next day with those three choices of how to go about it.
Okay.
You know, for the definition of recodification, is that something we could put in the definitions?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can, or you can
Well,
put
yes.
it or you could put it within the actual amendment to the charter concerning codification, what it means. But I'm unclear from reading Jesse's response that she's okay with Ralph's wording, and should we further it by having a definition? Because I don't know what it means. Even after looking up in Wikipedia, etc., and I don't want the citizens to be, or the town council members to be in a gray area when it comes to what consider, because your language, Ralph, it says of all town bylaws. What if you want to do recodification of only, we'll say, half of them? Would you be prohibited from doing that?
Well, I think the thing is, Larry, is what we're looking at is we're going through the process with e-codification.
Mm-hmm,
Once we go through that process,
mm-hmm.
E-code is putting everything together basically into one, I'm going to call it a booklet,
Right.
so that in the future, let's say we had to adjust zoning bylaws, that would still be part of E-code. And we would be adjusting a mass of all the bylaws. I mean, that was my take on it, and that's why I had worded it like that.
I don't have a problem with your wording, but I'm not the lawyer for the town who should specifically, I think, approve your wording or modify it and and also incorporate somehow what that means, recodification.
So I have no problems whatsoever having Jeannie send the wording to the lawyer and all. I think what we have to look at is Jesse's 3 suggestions, and if doing it the way I've suggested is the best way to do it. And if so, then let's have him look at that specific to adjust the language, give us a definition and stuff.
And this is to Michael and to Marilyn as well as Ralph. Do you think it's the sense of the council that you are interested in doing something like that? Recodification? Yes, Marilyn.
I look at recodification primarily as a format change. Now, I understand in this particular process, there's information that was incorrect. I picked up a few mistakes because I looked at one section to help them out. So there was information that's incorrect that needed to be corrected. Plus, there were some modifications to the actual content. I'm correct, Ralph, on that statement before I move on? Ralph? Hello?
He's frozen. Ralph was frozen.
Yes.
I was frozen. I'm back.
No, it was based on the e-codification, besides the format change where everything is being basically put in one document. In going through all of the bylaws, we did pick up errors or misinformation that had been provided by, other department heads, and we corrected that. So this initial e-codification is a huge project, and I look at it as a one-time project. Once it's done, any changes that are made with the bylaws would be on a case-by-case basis. Is that not true?
That is, well, let me jump in and say, probably 8 or 9 years ago, the school committee did the exact same thing and went digital with all their policies. And this is the same type of thing that the town is undertaking. It is a one-time thing. And then you just provide updates. So I don't ever see a recodification of the entire bylaw, every bylaw in the town ever happening again, unless something really wacky happens. So
That would be my opinion as well. However, we looked at the 1991 revision of the zoning bylaws, which changed the format. And then since then, there have been substantive changes to individual bylaws that were dealt with on a case-by-case basis.
then that'll still be the case. No matter what format you have, that's still going to be the case.
So the only thing is, in 30 years, like after 1991, 30 years later, we may be looking at, another process, something that was better to redo all of them at once. But I don't see this happening for another 30 or 40 years. I would hope not, with all the time me and Jeannie and the whole committee have spent on it. I'd like to get it done
we're all going
once
to be in
and
the
done.
nursing home.
Oh, I think it will be beyond the nursing home.
Hey, Ralph, I have one more, and I hate to be anal, but, like in the first paragraph of the section 6, it details about the process for amending one item at a time. And it goes on in the third paragraph, how many council meetings. We have a public hearing now on the second hearing. Do you need to incorporate that in this proposal?
I think that would be a question for the town's attorney.
Okay,
Like I said, what I was looking at is to try and get a bylaw question so that we could make a quick amendment to the charter back in June. Well, now it'll be next year, and get everything rolling for the e-codification that we're doing.
okay. Jeannie, I saw your hand.
Yeah, so initially when I talked with Jesse about this whole recodification thing, it would be not impossible, but painstakingly difficult to do the recodification based on the provisions of amending bylaws through the charter. By the time we got to that process, well, we could do the charter review and have this provision in the charter for a one-time process. So I like Jesse's first suggestion of having it be for a one-time process. Then we spoke, in another 10 years when the charter review's done again, well, then you can take it out. You have the option of taking that out. So I know how everybody else feels about just having it, having the language refer to a one-time recodification process, or however you want to verbalize it.
Yes, Tom.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Jeannie and Bill and Ralph, I think we sort of were thinking about that when we were making the revisions, and we kind of were going to list out all the revisions and say, changing he or he to there was just going to be, okay, no big deal. But if we had substantive changes, that those would be listed out so that they wouldn't get missed, right?
And Jesse felt any change is an amendment.
Correct.
Even he to she, or even changing the table of contents that we did, you're still amending what's there. So you'd have to adhere to the charter.
Right. But I'm just saying, in terms of making sure nothing gets shoved in there, trying to blind people from something, a substantive change in this one big change.
Right.
They were going to be listed out, as I recall.
Right.
Yes.
I recall hearing the same thing, and I agree with what Tom's saying.
Yes, Marilyn.
I think based on the discussion we've had about the probability that we're not going to be doing this huge e-codification again in our lifetime, that the one-time process is attractive to me.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like we're in agreement towards that end. However, I think we ought to ask Jesse to look at Ralph's wording, ask him about the process required for language to insert based on what's already in section 6, and also whether we need a definition within it, what that means for recodification.
Also, do we want to put in because we are going to have a public hearing, more than one, when it has to be approved by town council, the code, the final draft of the code. So do we want to have that in the language too? I don't know how everybody feels about that. How much do you want to have in there, or how vague do you want to be?
Well, I wonder if Jesse can really make a statement that recodification requires the same procedural requirements as a single amendment would. It could be as simple as that, and you can still have your 2 public hearings, and 2 meetings on it, the second being a public hearing.
I wouldn't want to do that.
What's that?
I wouldn't want to do that.
Why?
Because in committee members, when we talked about a public hearing before council approval, it's almost like we'd have one for the general bylaw section, one for the zoning bylaw section, because it's so huge. And zoning has so much different details than the general bylaws. So we talked about that vaguely, probably more than one public hearing, but that's what we're not sure yet how that's going to go.
Ralph?
So my thought process is, yes, you list it as a public hearing, but then break the public hearing down into a couple different meetings where we're going to attack the general bylaws at the first meeting, then it's continued to the second meeting where we're going to further go into the zoning bylaws, but the requirement would still be the one public hearing. It would just be a town council issue that because there's so much to cover, it's going to take multiple meetings to cover it.
Okay.
Well, why are you bringing up zoning, the zoning bylaws?
That's
That's
within,
kind of-
that's in the recodification. It's everything. It's the general
Oh,
bylaw
you're gonna, general and zoning?
It's
and
everything.
Everything.
Okay.
council rules, the charter, traffic rules and regs.
Subdivision control,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you speak
No.
of that, are there gonna be substantive changes as well?
In
Yes.
some sections, yes.
But we had the substantive changes approved at town council. Remember Pat Henry had gone over
Yeah.
those, which were substantive, I can't pronounce that word, and which were not. And they approved ones that would be.
That was before we submitted it, correct, Jeannie?
Yes.
Yeah, just for the draft submittal.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
draft. Because
Yeah.
we're not close to having this recodification done yet.
Okay,
We submitted the draft prior to COVID screwing everything up, and I'm sure that's slowed everything down.
all right, so this is the mechanism to get it through into the charter, and am I correct?
It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Larry, if I could,
yes, Phil.
I like Jeannie's thoughts that Jesse mentioned pertaining to mention a specific event and even a window of dates that the alternate process would apply to. I think we should add that in there or ask Jesse to at least look at that and put some wording into it on that.
Okay. Okay,
Does that need a motion and I can move forward with that?
So,
yes, Ralph, before we
so
decide.
just a quick question. I know Jesse mentioned maybe dates or whatever. The problem I have with a window of dates, unless that window is pretty wide, because if we go to a public hearing and then there's adjustments made and then more adjustments, but yet we've already changed the charter, I mean, we could be looking 6 months, a year before everything's done. I'm hoping not, but I just don't want to miss a time frame because we're putting specific dates, when this has to happen. Unless we do it in, within the next 3 years or something on that idea.
I agree with Ralph on that, only because of history, and we can get pretty bureaucratic sometimes when we get caught in, dissecting something. I think the one-time codification process is key to, the charter rather than the dates. But that's all part of the first suggestion, Phil, that the attorney made.
Yes, Bill.
I agree with what Ralph and Marilyn are saying that, and I'll go back to what I said before. I'm not sure we're ever going to be doing this again. And, like to Ralph's point, 30 years from now, it could be a different process. But now we're talking about what's happening now and not really worrying about what's down the road.
Okay.
So I think the dates would be dangerous putting them in there.
Jeannie?
But I would suggest a specific event at the very least, but not the dates.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I have a technical question. Mr. President, and this might be for the town manager as well. Are we authorized or allowed to request some advice and assistance from the town's lawyer, which will result in, I presume, some cost to the town? Or does it have to be the town manager or the town council requesting it?
I would run it through the town manager. She has the dialogue right now, and any conversations that we have with the town attorney, we seek prior approval so that it might not be a redundant conversation. So,
Okay. Jeannie, can you speak to Mary about that?
Sure.
Is that a sure?
Sure.
Okay,
Shoot.
okay, all right. All right, so let's move on. And we're now on section 6. strike that. We're now in section 8, vacancy. And let me read that to everyone. Whenever a vacancy occurs on the town council, the president of the town council shall, within 30 days following the date of the vacancy, call a special meeting of the town council to fill the vacancy. The town council shall choose a person to fill the vacancy from among the voters by a majority vote of the full council. Persons elected to fill a vacancy by the town council shall serve only until the next regular town election, when the office shall be filled by the voters. The candidate elected to an office filled by appointment prior to the election shall be sworn to the office immediately to complete the then unexpired term in addition to the term for which elected. No vacancy shall be filled under this section if a regular town election is to be held within 120 days following the date the vacancy is declared to exist. Persons appointed as town councilors under this section shall not be entitled to have the words "candidate for re-election" printed with that person's name on the election ballot. Questions, comments, suggestions? Yes, Jeff.
I have a question, which doesn't appear to be clarified here. It just says the council shall choose a person from among the voters. What's the process to find people? Is this going to be advertised that there's a vacancy, allow people to be able to apply? Or is it just going to be picking somebody out of the air and say, you're it?
Michael, you're on the floor to tell us how it was done most recently.
I'm going to pass that to Marilyn because this situation corresponds directly with Marilyn. And Marilyn's very familiar with the process and fulfilled all of the requirements of the charter. And I can only say to this date and time, everything seemed to work very well.
All I can say is that the town. All I can say is that the council advertised the position with a final date, and we were asked to submit letters of interest, and once that occurred, then a meeting was set for the appointment process to take place, and it was within that 30-day period. In fact, there was some criticism that there wasn't enough time, that there was definitely publication for it, but you know, we had 3 people apply. Someone thought we should have had a bunch more, and maybe we should have advertised it differently. Jeannie, I can't tell, how did we advertise for my vacancy?
Oh, it was, I can't say for sure without looking back, but I would say we probably did an article, a news release and a reminder.
Okay.
And the website, but like I said, I can't say for sure without looking back on it. I felt that we filled all this. Whether there was any criticism or suggestions in the background, I wouldn't know of that.
Well, the only reason why I say that is one counselor was a little bit vocal on the night of my appointment regarding the fact that there, you know, it just didn't seem like there was either enough people looking into the job or enough people that were aware of it. But I agree. I mean, the people that applied knew, and we knew it because of the publication. You have to look at the information, I guess, to read the information. But I was pleased that the process, the 30-day time limit, how the special meeting was scheduled by the council, how it all flowed, I was satisfied.
Jeff, does that help you?
Oh. Basically, there's nothing in the charter that says that the position shall be advertised.
Correct.
And I don't know if that's something that should be physically written in there, that it has to be publicly advertised to allow anybody who wants to apply, or, I mean, that's just me looking at it.
Right. The issue of choosing from the voters, I mean, you need to be a resident. So I don't know if you know, whether that we would want to change that and say, you know, a resident to apply.
Registered voter.
Registered voter.
Yeah.
Right.
But my whole point is, you know, I understand it has to be a registered voter, but there's nothing here stating that the position will be publicly advertised. It just says the council will choose a voter. But it doesn't tell how that process will be done.
I don't know about those that were part of the Charter Commission and this particular language. When this vacancy came up, and I'm just throwing this out there, could the council, based on what's written here, could they have selected someone just to select someone without advertising, without, say perhaps there was someone who was a previous counselor who would have, you know, was willing to step in to fill in the vacancy. Could the council have just appointed that individual without, at a special meeting without advertising? And I'm not suggesting that that's the case. What was the thinking when the Charter Commission put this language together?
Bill, Ralph?
Ralph.
Happy to speak up. Yes, actually, the council could look to someone that had been on the town council before and ask them if they want to serve for the remainder. I mean, it's typical, I think, that you put it out there to the public. But from my days on the planning board, I believe the same thing is done. To where you can just pick someone, as long as you're all in agreement, take a vote and move on.
I'm not.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm not really sure why this got put in the charter. I'm not sure if it was another one of those cases where it was a copy and paste and we all read it over and it sounded good at the time. Not delving into the details, but to speak to Jeff's point, I agree that the process should be described if we're going to change the way this reads. Because it does read where the council could appoint, call a special meeting and appoint somebody. And I'm not sure that that was the intent when we put this together.
I agree with that, because if, just say for example, there was a counselor who had served and had retired or stepped off and was willing to fill in a vacancy, that counselor could certainly interview along with anyone else who might be interested in the position.
Michael?
I just want to add that this situation happened more than once. We've had 2 vacancies over the last 4 years,
Right.
and the process was the same both times. It was advertised, and there were no less than 3 candidates interviewed under both situations. The council made the selection, and we moved forward. We have never been in a situation where somebody resigned short of the 120 days where that situation, that seat would have remained empty until there was a vote. So we followed the process twice, and it worked
Okay.
well.
Before you get to your time, I just want to remind people, prior to the town council and the town charter coming into being, when there was a vacancy on any elected board, whether it be school committee, board of selectmen, well, selectmen, I'm not sure, but planning board elected and some other elected boards. We'll use the school committee as an example. The remaining school committee members would sit with the board of selectmen, and under state law, which was followed in that case, there was no requirement to advertise. It merely said that a meeting of those remaining school committee members and the selectmen would meet and pick a person to fill the position. Later in a later article, we'll look at the school committee, and that process is identical, where the process is basically that school committee with the
council.
town council
Yeah.
meets. Jeff, I don't think there's any requirement under state law to advertise. I can check. But that, I think the wording in the charter, both for town council vacancies and for school committee vacancies, really followed the prior administration within the town and followed what the state law was. So, I mean, I can double check and look at the state law on vacancies in town councils, but I mean, that doesn't mean we couldn't recommend that. I just don't think that's the way it's been in the past or even the present.
And that might be why it was put in the way it was, and not not an oversight.
Yeah.
Because we were following state law when we did this.
Yep.
And I remember, I just went back through some notes, and I remember looking at the state laws, and there is nothing in there about advertising.
Tom?
So it sounds like the suggestion by Jeff would be to add something in there, and it's from what Mike and Marilyn have said, they do that already anyway. So does it hurt to just put it in the language that so for forever, that's always going to be the process that's followed?
I did that remark. That's what I was going to say. We should add it in there.
Do you require, what kind of, when you say advertise, what are you talking about, Jeff?
A public notice of a vacancy on the town website and the reminder, just letting the public know, hey, we have a vacancy. If you're interested, please apply. The whole point is you could have the possibility exists. You could say, Joe Blow's my friend. Let's just appoint him. Whether it's good or bad, who knows? But it leaves that window open.
Okay, I have one more on that paragraph to add, and it's in the first sentence. It says, whenever a vacancy occurs on the town council, the president of the town council shall within 30 days. What if the vacancy was the president of the council? And you go back to Article, I'm sorry. Article 2, Section 3, the last paragraph. It says the vacancy in the office of president shall be filled at the next council meeting. So you'd have to have a meeting prior to 30 days passing to fulfill the requirements of Section 8. I don't necessarily think you need to change the wording, but as long as the council is aware of that procedural aspect. All right, so Jeff, going back to you, Jeff. Are you proposing a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that the wording, however it goes, be added, that the vacancy should be publicly advertised.
Where would you insert that?
What?
Can't hear you.
Where would you insert that in the section? How about after the first sentence?
Yeah, I would say after the first sentence.
Okay. So you would want to say the vacancy shall be advertised in a local publication?
Correct.
And website or,
And the town website.
yeah. I second that motion.
Okay, Phil. Any discussion?
Larry, do you have the entire motion written in front of you?
I do,
Could you read it to me, please?
sure. It'll be the second, it'll be a newly inserted second sentence in
Right.
section 8. It will read, the vacancy shall be,
ahead.
I'm going to change your wording a little bit, Jeff, with your
Okay.
permission.
Permission granted.
Yeah,
The notice of said vacancy shall be published in a local publication and advertised on the town.
Can't hear you, Larry.
Okay. The notice of said vacancy shall be published in a local publication and advertised in the town, on the town website.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor, Phil Adams,
Yes.
Larry Levine, yes. Jeff Bosworth,
Yes.
Marilyn Richards,
Yes.
Tom Christensen,
Yes.
Ralph Page,
Yes.
William Fonseca.
yes.
Okay, so that's unanimous. Are we ready to move on to the next section?
As long as we make a note that we got full council in there too, Larry.
Thanks, Tom. I was going to pick
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
And this one would really imply that it would not be a 7-member board, you know, being the vacancy section.
Right.
Right, right.
Excuse me,
Uh-oh.
Jeannie,
Yes, Jeannie.
do you want to include there what Marilyn and I talked about, that the person should be a registered voter of the town?
Oh, yeah. I think that
Well,
has to
hold
be
on.
in there.
Let's go back 1 second to, do we have a definition for voters? Yes.
Larry, we can't hear you.
Okay, I don't think you need to, because in the definitional section in Article 1, voters is defined.
Yeah.
And it's voters is defined as registered voters.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Here we are, Section 9, access to information. In general, the town council may make inquiries into the affairs of the town and into the conduct and performance of any town department. Can I break this up because this is rather lengthy?
Yes.
That's the first paragraph in Section 9. Any questions, comments, suggestions?
My understanding is, just looking at that the council as one entity can make an inquiry. Is that how you read it? Not individual counselors, just the council itself.
That's the way I read it. But if you feel uncomfortable, and that may be a good suggestion, the town council as a whole. What do you think about that?
Mhm.
Well,
You have in Section 10, well, that's a little different.
yeah, that is different. I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Is there a different process? And this is to Marilyn, Mike, and Ralph. Is there a different process if an individual counselor wants information from any department, or can you just do it on your own?
We follow the protocol that the department heads work directly for the town manager, and any comments from any council member pertaining to a department head should flow through the town manager.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
So, Mike, the only thing I would say to that is if the question a counselor has could be asked as a resident, and it's just a straight basic question, let's say to the health department, then he or she would be asking as a resident.
Right, yeah, I recognize that difference. I recognize the difference.
So do the
Because the
employees.
questions would be different.
Jeff, you had your hand up.
Well, I look at it as the town council is the governing body of the town. They're basically the overall. And yeah, I can understand going through the town manager for some things, but if there's something that a counselor feels needs to be addressed or needs an answer for something immediately without going through the red tape, why don't they have the ability to do that?
I'm not following. Could you say that again?
Okay. If you say the council as a whole can make an inquiry. However, an individual counselor who is part of the town's governing body, the main governing body, cannot go directly to an individual if there's a specific thing they need to get an answer to right away, as opposed to trying to get a hold of the town manager and go through, which may take 2-3 days, whatever. I'm just trying to figure out why an individual counselor would not be allowed to do that.
Again, Michael.
I would just like to remind everyone, when the charter was designed, it was designed with the intent, and people need to consider the fact that the town councilors took the place of town meeting. So we are the voice of the residents, and the town manager took the place of the Board of Selectmen. So following the chain of command, if the councilors have a specific question regarding how a department head might be functionally doing their job, that should be run through the town manager, because the department heads work for the town manager.
Okay. So, go ahead, Tom.
No, I'd actually make the argument that that's not even what that says. It just says very vaguely that it can make inquiries. It doesn't say to whom.
Why is it there? Because it spells out everything below it. Is there, can we just take off that first sentence in general? Because I think it confuses things more than it explains things.
I guess that's what I mean. That it doesn't. It just says may make inquiries. That to me is vague in itself. It doesn't say that they have to be through the town manager or to the town manager.
And then below it kind of spells out, with the town manager, how the town manager provides information. So I don't know what the purpose of that first sentence is, and if there's any harm in just.
I'll throw my 2 cents in. The original Charter Commission, I believe, wanted to make sure that the elected officials, which would only be the town councilors, still had a way to oversee or involve themselves for their knowledge what was going on with the day-to-day operation of the town. So it was important to give them some latitude. I thought that the intent was, rather than having 7 individuals going seven separate ways and making inquiries. I mean, in the past, before town charter and town council, you normally would have the chairman of an elected board be the person who would receive inquiries from their board members and perhaps with the consent, then go and meet with other department heads or other chairperson of other elected boards. So I think it was inserted for all of those reasons, that there's, although the day-to-day operations run by the town manager and department heads under the manager, as well as the school committee, etc., they wouldn't be totally separate and distinct. Yes, Marilyn?
I agree. And sorry, Jeannie, I think the language needs to stay there because that's quite honestly how some of the issues are being handled before the council right now. I mean, we have constituents who come together with petitions that they present to the town that involve perhaps a certain department, might involve the police department, the Board of Public Works, the health department, and like it or not, we get pulled into these issues, and I think it's a sort of a hybrid action that we do. I mean, yes, the day-to-day operations are the town manager and the department heads and the various departments, but there are specific situations where the council does get involved, and I believe this gives the council the permission to do that.
We have reached a point we unfortunately have to adjourn again. Next
Chairman?
meeting proposed the next Tuesday, which is September, is that September 1st?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yes, it is.
That's election day. I think we have
It's
to.
Jeannie,
election
are we
day.
allowed to meet
Yeah.
on
No.
even a primary day?
No.
No,
Not an election day.
Hey, Don?
Planning
Yes,
board.
yes, sir.
uh,
You have my permission to continue on because there's no other meeting. I'm willing to stay.
We're gonna have a riot in my house because my grandchildren are coming momentarily.
Well, my
So
permission means nothing then.
And you recall last meeting when the dog was barking and things were going on? So I appreciate the extension, but how are we, if we can't meet next Tuesday, are we able to meet next either Monday or Wednesday?
Can we miss a week?
yeah, let's just miss a week.
Okay.
I'm on vacation.
Oh, sure, rub it in. All
Sorry.
right, so the following would be Tuesday, September 8th
Yes.
at 4:30. Yes, Michael?
I would just like to remind you, for recording purposes and timing, that we do have a council meeting on the 8th at 6 p.m.
Right.
Okay, that's
Okay.
all
So you're
right.
going to be held to the 5:30 for that
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
be fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're usually pretty good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Okay,
are.
so-
Great.
All right, so I have my entourage arriving, and so with your permission, September 8th at 4:30.
Yeah.
Please think about that one sentence, and we'll get back to that at that meeting.
Sounds good.
All right.
I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ralph's made it, and who
Second.
seconded? Jeff seconded.
Yeah.
Phil Adams,
Yes.
Larry Levine, yes. Jeff Bosworth,
Yes.
Marilyn Richards,
Yes.
Tom Christensen,
Yes.
Ralph Page,
Yeah.
William Fonseca.
Yes,
All right, kids, stay well.
All right.
you too.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you soon.
Thanks, John.